Jeez. Jeez. That's all I can say right now. Dallas is up 3-0. The Dallas Mavericks are up 3-0 on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I can't even lie, I had a pretty optimistic series prediction going into this because I was watching the pod earlier. And I did have the Timberwolves winning in 6. But I did not see a potential sweep in the works. Now, there is still one game, but I don't think anyone expected this to go. Actually, I was watching the pod too. Sage did call Mavs in 4. But, yo, the Dallas Mavericks take a 3-0 lead on the Minnesota Timberwolves, 116-107. And so much to talk about because this is a shock. This is not what this series was supposed to be, right? Going into this series, the Minnesota Timberwolves, to me, were pretty, can I say heavily favored? I just know a lot of people had Minnesota winning this series. Essentially because of power scaling, which is something that I do want to touch on later in this video, this idea of power scaling NBA series. But effectively, the concept was, the Minnesota Timberwolves had a lot of momentum from the last 2 series. The concept was the Minnesota Timberwolves already beat a better team. So going up against the Dallas Mavericks, who is a team that a lot of people deem is not a better team than the Denver Nuggets, then the Minnesota Timberwolves should beat the Dallas Mavericks. Whether that's in 4, whether that's in 5, whether that's in 6 or 7, the Minnesota Timberwolves should come out and beat the Dallas Mavericks, or at least should be favored going into it. But it started with game 1. There's a lot of great basketball that's being played, and you might as well make some money off of it using the sponsors of this video, Prize Picks, my personal favorite way to play daily fantasy sports. All you gotta do is download their app or go on their website and sign up for an account. And how you make money on here is pretty simple, and I feel like it is up all of y'all's alley because y'all know so much basketball. They got a bunch of different sports up here, but I know y'all like basketball, so we're gonna go to the NBA tab right here. They got a bunch of different stats on the board. They got the popular picks of the day, so we're actually gonna stick with the popular picks of the day. I'm expecting a pretty big game from Jaylen Brown today, so I'm gonna go more on Jaylen Brown points right there. They got Miles Turner at 4.5 3-point attempts in this game, and I feel like that's just a little bit too high. I'm gonna go less on the Miles Turner 3-point attempts. I'm gonna go ahead and put $5 on this lineup right here. Press submit lineup, and boom, that is how you make a lineup on Prize Picks. And thanks to our friends over at Prize Picks, if you guys use code SLZ, you guys can get a 100% match on your first deposit of up to $100. So if you put in $100, they'll match it with $100 of their own, and now you got $200 to play with. Links to everything will be in the description down below, and shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring this video. Appreciate y'all, man. All of these games have been really close. Let me just say that as well, because game 1 of Minnesota versus Dallas won by 9, and I believe in the 4th quarter, yeah, Luke. Okay, so this was when Kai was going crazy in the first half. Now I remember, Kai was going 11 of 14 in the first half. Luka was still there. He had 14 and 5 in the first half on okay efficiency, in my opinion. But then as Kai stunk it up in the second half, going 1 of 9, Luka just took over with 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. And I believe had like clutch defensive plays. Okay, and then game 2 was the Naz Reid game. Yeah, game 2 was the Naz Reid game, 23 points off the bench. And then Luka just took over in the 4th quarter. Actually, Luka didn't have a good second half, or at least a good 4th quarter. Kai was the one putting in all the work. But when it came to that last possession on Rudy Gobert, step back 3, going to the right, got cooked. And now here we are in game 3, and a lot of tough shot making from the Dallas Mavericks. A lot of tough shot making from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I do want to say this. Derek Lively, my goodness. First of all, took a shot to the nuts, and then a shot to the head. Hopefully, if the Dallas Mavericks do make it to the NBA Finals, he would be all set to go. But that's very unfortunate because Derek Lively has been extremely important to Dallas's success. He's been, in my opinion, the best lob threat in the NBA playoffs. Defensively, he's been solid as shit as well. The Dallas Mavericks are down 2 bigs right now. Two of their most important bigs. Maxi Kleber, who can provide spacing at the 5. Derek Lively coming off the bench, who was their starting center for a majority of the season. And then Daniel Gafford now. Daniel Gafford isn't down, but speaking of Daniel Gafford, oh my god, did y'all see them blocks and the dunk at the end of the game by Daniel Gafford? Like, I'm looking at it right now, chat. It doesn't look impressive. Daniel, 5 points, 3 rebounds from your starting center does not look impressive. But down the stretch, Daniel Gafford just turned at the... Shout out Daniel Gafford, bro. Shout out Daniel Gafford. And the duo of Kyrie and Luka. I was very hesitant on it going into the playoffs to talk about it. Because I remember a friend of the show, Swiper, quote retweeted a graphic asking who's a better offensive duo between LeBron and Kyrie and Luka and Kyrie. And I'm going to be honest, like, people were using that tweet as discourse has gotten out of hand. But I was really, like, I usually don't do this, but I was really thinking about it at that time. I'm like, is this really that much of a stretch? Specifically with how good Kyrie, Kyrie too, but specifically with how dominant Luka is being on the offensive end, I don't think that's too far of a stretch to say Luka and Kyrie are better offensive duo than LeBron and Kyrie. But now that we've established Luka as a point guard, the conversations about this duo, being the best offensive backcourt in history is definitely interesting. And off of talent alone, boy, you'd have to instantly go Steph and Clay. You'd instantly have to go to Steph and Clay. And from an individual standpoint, you would lean towards Steph and Clay because of their synergy together, but even Kyrie and Luka already got synergy together, obviously, and just what they've done from a team perspective, but that's also a team accomplishment. So, I don't know, dude. Long story short, this duo is absolutely fantastic. The worst thing you can do against the Dallas Mavericks is keep it close. The worst thing you can do with the Dallas Mavericks is to keep it close going into clutch time, crunch time, and let Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic pick you apart. Because that is where they thrive. Whether either one of them may not be going crazy for certain stretches, but Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic in clutch time situations, I do not want that. So I feel like the game plan for the Dallas Mavericks, which is definitely easier said than done, is to blow them out and make them play catch up the whole game. I can't lie. But even that, they've had a couple of good comebacks in these playoffs so far. Listen, they are on pace to make it to the finals for a reason. And I think people in these playoffs, specifically looking at that other side of the Western Conference, have definitely underrated the Dallas Mavericks. In my opinion, it was kind of an unspoken thing that people didn't want to say. But I feel like a decent amount of people thought that top half, that top bracket with OKC and Dallas was the weaker bracket of the conference, and that bottom half was the stronger half of that conference, and whoever made it out of that bracket was going to win the finals. People didn't want to say it, but from the feeling that I got from everyone, that's what I was getting. And I listen, I understand why everyone thought Minnesota was going to win the series. I understand why they were favored. I just feel like in all of this, we really underrated how good Dallas is in terms of executing, how good that defense is as well. You know what I'm saying? I understand Kyrie and Luka, they don't have this. They're not known to be defenders, and if anything, throughout their career, it's been the exact opposite. They've known to be bad, known to be bad defenders. But if you just watch them play, listen, bro, it is easier said than done. And Derek Jones Jr., P.J. Washington, and Daniel Gafford, along with Derek Lively coming off the bench, have been really, really big parts of that defense in terms of helping out Kyrie and Luka when they get beat. But also from Kyrie and Luka, they have made a lot of timely defensive plays. They have made a lot of timely defensive steals. Like, Luka had 5 steals this game, y'all. Luka also got a block. You know what I'm saying? A lot of just timely things from Kyrie and Luka. And that's what I'm saying when it comes to Kyrie and Luka and this team, In clutch time situations, Kyrie and Luka, you can trust to make really clutch plays on either ends of the court. Their feel for the game, their instincts are just that great that on either sides of the court, they are going to make plays down the stretch. So the worst thing you can do is keep it close. And for these 3 games, Minnesota has done exactly that. Now, on Minnesota's side, why have they been failing? It's pretty simple. I think defensively, that is not their biggest issue. It's the offense. I'm going to keep it a stack. Anthony Edwards has been playing poor in this series. He has been playing poor in this series. Now, this is not to set up slander and, you know what I'm saying, other comparison talks. And there is context as to why he's playing poor, right? Number one, he is young. I don't give a fuck about them MJ comparisons that everyone wanted to bring on him. I thought those were, it made sense from an aesthetic standpoint, but it got too much at one point. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck about that, right? I don't give a fuck about, you know, how he was playing earlier in the playoffs. What I saw from Anthony Edwards was an inexperienced, a guy who hasn't made it to the playoffs. A guy who has not made it deep into the playoffs as much as he's had this season, right? A guy who just went through a dogfight against the Denver Nuggets, went to 7 games there, and then has to face Luka and the Dallas Mavericks in the next round. Anthony Edwards looks gassed out there. I'm like, he had a dominant stretch in this game, and I will say this game specifically was his best game. But again, if you were watching the game, Anthony Edwards was not balling throughout this whole game. Prior to the third quarter, I ain't gonna lie, very similar to Tatum. It was looking like a Tatum stinker out there. Like he was just settling. He was, you know, taking difficult shots for the sake of taking difficult shots, and they just weren't falling. That's what you have to live with Anthony Edwards, but it just wasn't falling. You know what I'm saying? His playmaking ability, I believe turnovers have been a relatively big problem for Anthony Edwards in this series, right? This game, Anthony Edwards had 5 turnovers. In this game right here, which is game 2, let's check how many turnovers he had. Okay, he had 2 turnovers, so that's not too bad. And then in game 1, he had 3 turnovers, which is honestly not too bad, but still led the team in turnovers. But long story short, if you watch Minnesota play in their offense, and maybe it's not, again, I do think it's just the Minnesota Timberwolves are just asking too much from Anthony Edwards at age 22. You know what I'm saying? I think what Ant is going through right now is great reps for the future, because Ant has a decade plus left in the league. You know what I'm saying? These are the growing pains that every great star, great NBA team goes through. But what's being asked from Ant right now is just too much. It's just too much. And I understand the Minnesota Timberwolves offense has been, you know, good enough to beat a Denver Nuggets in the playoffs so far. But I'm sorry. And respect to Jaden McDaniels, but if we're expecting Jaden McDaniels to, you know what I'm saying, shoot like Klay Thompson out there at a consistent basis, then I think that's a problem, you know? And Karl-Anthony Towns, I really wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I really was high on you in these playoffs because you were, you know, you're at a reduced role. You know, even as the second best player, second option on this team, there's a couple guys in there that can step up and be number 2s for X game, and then you roll back to a 3 so that, you know, we're not asking too much from Karl-Anthony Towns. But Kat, you have been dog shit. And mind you, Basketball Reference hasn't updated, but in these first 2 games, 16 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Didn't get a single block as a 7-footer, which that's fine. But 28% from the field and 21% from 3 from your supposed second option. That is not gonna get it done. That is not going to get it done. And then this night, 5 of 18 from the field. 0 of 8 from 3. Started off the game 0 of 7. Karl-Anthony Towns, this is not going to get it done. And as I would really like to, and not to say that Dallas's defense has no part in it, but I swear to God, it's just Karl-Anthony Towns taking dumb shots for the most part, making bad decisions, or just straight up breaking open shots too. Like the worst case scenario to have a series like this, that is what is happening for Karl-Anthony Towns. You know, and as great as their defense has been, I just think their offense ran out of gas. Their offense, while it showed the ceilings that it got, if when it returned to its norm, you know, there's a reason why people had doubt with this team going into the playoffs, and I think we're seeing that right now. You know what I'm saying? We're seeing that right now. Their offense is subpar. You know, and I think we ultimately, respectfully, saw outlier series against the Denver Nuggets. You know, against the Denver Nuggets. And 27, 6, and 5 on 50, 37, 85. Those are pretty reasonable stats for Anthony Edwards. But Karl-Anthony Towns shooting 50, 40, 80 in the playoffs. That's kind of you know what I'm saying? Jaden McDaniels giving you 11 points on 50, 38. That's, in my opinion, out of characteristic. A guy like Mike Conley shooting 45%. That's not normal to me. I would not be surprised at all if Minnesota does extend the series in the next game. I would not be surprised at all if Minnesota does extend the series because I do think they are talented enough to continue on the series. But the stats speak for itself. The Dallas Mavericks are no chumps, you know, and it is going to be the most uphill battle coming back from 3-0. And I have the Dallas Mavericks ending this in 5 games max. I have the Dallas Mavericks now ending this in 5 games max. And now I got to start looking ahead to a Dallas versus Boston. Knock on wood. Dallas versus Boston NBA Finals. I can't lie, bro. When I was thinking about it, I didn't want it. It's going to sound like hope, but I didn't want this because, again, I've been really, really happy for Kyrie this season in terms of proving everyone wrong, keeping his name out the limelight for bad reasons, and just keeping it basketball. But if the NBA Finals is Kyrie Irving going up against the Boston Celtics, I'm telling you right now, a lot of those toxic conversations about Kyrie are going to resurface. So that's the main reason I didn't want that finals to happen. But now that it's looking like it's here, hey, man, I'm embracing it, man. I'm embracing it. This is looking like it's about to be peak hoops. You know what I'm saying? For my narrative guys out there, oh, my God, the storylines write themselves. The storylines write themselves. This feels like one of those battles for the face of the league. You know what I'm saying? At least that's how the NBA should market it if they really want to push them ratings. I can't lie. Do I agree with that? Not necessarily. But yeah, they could really push Luka versus Tatum into some crazy conversations if they really wanted to. Kyrie versus Boston writes itself. You know what I'm saying? Kristaps Porzingis versus the Dallas Mavericks writes itself as well. It's gonna be prime basketball, dog. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm going to say. Also, aesthetically speaking, high-powered offenses, bag talk out the wazoo. If you find any of these motherfuckers boring, then I don't know what to tell you. I just don't think you like basketball at this point. The vibes are about to be amazing. And for me personally, I'm about to go 1v3 on my podcast. Because I'm going up against Sage, damn near. Sage, Omar, and Damo. 3 of the biggest Luka fans I know. 3 of the biggest Luka fans I know. Now, some of y'all might be wondering, BSOLZ, how you feeling about that? How you feeling? First of all, I welcome the challenge. I can't lie. After Denver was out, it truly didn't matter to me who was going to make it to the finals. There is no favorable matchup that I wanted. And especially with the narratives going around the Celtics and how, they can't beat good teams now. It doesn't matter to me who we face in the finals. Both from just who I want and who I think, the Celtics can beat. Because I do think, especially with how Denver was playing against Minnesota, I truly think the Boston Celtics, to me, have shown that they can beat any of these teams in the West. Both from, if I'm looking at how they execute, how they've been playing all season, how they've been playing all playoffs, how these teams out in the West are looking, and their deficiencies as well. I think Boston can beat any of these teams, to be honest with you. Now, again, I'm not going to make the same mistake in power scale. You know what I'm saying? Power scale, this matchup, potential matchup against the Dallas Mavericks. I do think the Dallas Mavericks are there for a reason. I respect the fuck out of Luka. I respect the fuck out of Kyrie. I respect the fuck out of that organization and what they've done post-trade deadline. But with that being said, pre-NBA Finals predictions, and I'll definitely go in depth into this into another video, but I got Celtics in 6. And if that's too safe of a pick, I am leaning towards 5, then 7. All right? But I got Celtics in 6 going into that series right there. Before we head out of here, I do want to just touch on this idea of power scaling, because I feel like, again, the reason why the Dallas Mavericks were so underestimated was because of this idea that, this team beat a better team before, so therefore if they face a team that's not better than the last team, then they're supposed to win against this other team. I'm sorry, this is not anime. That is not how basketball works. Fatigue is a real thing when it comes to these players. The fatigue level that the Timberwolves had going into the Denver series is a different fatigue level than they got going into the Dallas Mavericks series. And also different matchup problems. Dallas presents specific and different matchup problems for the Minnesota Timberwolves as opposed to the Denver Nuggets, and also just luck of the draw as well. You know what I'm saying? Just because you were playing one way this round doesn't necessarily mean those same shots are going to go the next round for either team. You know what I'm saying? All of these things play a factor. So this idea of just power scaling, I honestly hate in the NBA. We're seeing that out east as well with the Boston Celtics, this idea that just because these Western teams are facing better teams leading up to the finals, that they should automatically be favored because the Boston Celtics haven't been facing good teams going into the finals. I think we understand how talented the Boston Celtics are. I think we understand that they are leaps and bounds ahead of everyone in the East, especially currently standing. So that whole power scaling thing is just bothering me, because if we really look at at least recent NBA history, that just hasn't been the case. And honestly, probably the biggest example of this, because of the fact that we're talking about the Celtics, is the 2008 Boston Celtics. You know what I'm saying? The 2008 Celtics went through a crappy Hawks team in the first round, went to 7 against LeBron and friends in the second round, and did go against a Detroit Pistons team that was good in the Eastern Conference Finals. Did go to 6 there. But I think everyone would say that the Lakers had, a tougher road to the NBA Finals. But we understand, what the outcome of that series ended up being. And I could go on and on and on. But long story short, just because one team had a tougher road going into a certain matchup doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win. And, I think we've seen that. And we are seeing that right now with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks and how they're playing. But with that being said, let me know what y'all think, bro. Let me know what y'all think. It does look like we're going to get Dallas versus Boston. Let me know what y'all think about that finals matchup right there. Let me know what y'all think about the series. Is the series over, or are the Minnesota Timberwolves going to make a 3-0 comeback? Do the impossible. Same thing with the Pacers. With that being said, I'm out, man. Peace.